it's never too late to take control of your gene activation. I can do it, for example, today by just changing my diet, by just adopting meditation into my lifestyle. This is going to have an immediate effect in the gene expression of the body, or it's going to take some time until you see some kind of results.
Some of the behavioral changes or lifestyle modifications can have a very immediate effect in your body. Say for example, even if you do a breathing exercise for 5 minutes, right? You start a pranayama exercise for 5 minutes, you are going to stimulate some of the proteins that are important for our immune function or the functions of the nervous system, for example.
Is it possible to take control of your gene expression and the overall health of your body regardless of your family genetic heritage? Today, I'm going to talk about this topic with one of the top 5 leaders in the world in breathing science. His name is Dr. Sundar Balasubramanian. He's a cell biology researcher and the founder of the Prana Science Institute. Stay with us and enjoy this conversation. But I think it's important to understand what epigenetics is and how the mind and not only the breathing, but the mind and the emotions are, and the thoughts that we have are influencing as well the body. And from that, we can transition into how pranayama is affecting the biology and the genes of the body.
Very good. Yeah. So epigenetics, as the name says, it involves what goes on top of the genetics. We are born with a set of genes, and they are inherited. The way that we will age is on kind of 100% how we inherited from our parents only at the time of birth. As we
Mm.
age, as we grow up, our actions, our environment, everything is influencing in the way that we age. So that's how the genetics is being imprinted by external signal, external environmental stimulations. So those are key in the expression of genes at specific times, specific parts of the body or tissues. So epigenetics is by and large a mechanism which influences many different actions in the body, especially the aging process. How fast or how slow we age depends upon our epigenetic mechanisms or the imprints that we follow all throughout our year lifetime. So it is largely influenced by our behavioral changes, lifestyle. So when we talk about lifestyle, it can come together from exercise, nutrition, social life, and our emotional status. Most
Mhm.
importantly, the emotional status is one key aspect in all these epigenetic imprints. And in that way, breathing is a key to how we feel at the emotional body and at the physical body. That's where the state of the not only the oxygen, of course, the level of oxygen or the hypoxia, how that stimulates some of the epigenetic mechanisms is also very interesting. So it is very closely connected with how we breathe. So some of
Mhm.
the sometimes like the how the low oxygen versus high oxygen, they can stimulate very key factors like they have discovered like Yamanaka factors. Those are very important in terms of turning on, turning off genes that
Mm.
are key to the reprogramming of cells. So
Mhm.
the cells that are formed at the very early stage, they are developing in a very hypoxic condition. So the
Mm.
hypoxia, like low oxygen level, is something that will stimulate the production of cells with multiple potentials, like the pluripotent stem cells. So those
Mm.
stem cells are very important in making different types of cells like heart cells, nerve cells, and
mm,
so on. So it is very important to keep those cells, the stemness of the cell, intact. So you will be able to stimulate many different types of cells, which can be replaced during
mm,
later life, during tissue injury. And our body has all the tissues have those stem cells.
mm,
And what we kind of fail is to use the power of oxygen or the power of hypoxia, like how
mm,
we can regulate that, the balance between the hypoxic or hyperoxic or normoxic conditions, and how they can be used to stimulate those pluripotency.
mm,
Those are something that's very interesting. And it is also like how the metabolic activity, kind of adds to the epigenetic mechanisms, is also
mm,
very interesting. So the epigenetics seems to be the key or the central player in aging and in diseases as well.
mm.
So when we think about that cellular reprogramming, it is the epigenetics, it is the key thing, and then it is very nicely connected with breathing.
Just to go a little bit deeper into epigenetics and to understand it, is the fact, for example, if I'm coming from a family where everybody is obese, and I say like, well, I have the genes already in my body, so I'm gonna be obese when I'm gonna be 40. Um, because you were talking about shutting down some genes and activating them right now, depending of how you behave, of what you think, or what you eat. So that means for the people to understand is that if your family has a track of obesity, that doesn't mean that you're going to be obese unless you're following the lifestyle of your family and you're following the same behaviors that they're doing. Like, for example, eating the same food, living in the same environment, uh, having the same thoughts, the same beliefs. So, is it possible that somebody can break with this, um how to say, like a gene karma,
Connection,
and
yeah,
became
yeah.
somebody different?
Very, very interesting. Very good question. So it is exactly, you said it right. So if somebody is born in a family with some trait, right, which can be modifiable
Mm,
through behavior. So those are definitely modifiable risk factors. So that the risk factor can be modifiable versus non-modifiable risk factors. So those, the for example, the obesity is to a large degree, it's a modifiable risk factor. Heart
mm,
diseases or diseases of the nervous system, sometimes like maybe the Alzheimer's disease. There may be a very small component of genetics or the contribution by the gene code itself, but it is largely, it can be modified through changes in our lifestyle. That's
mm,
why the Siddha system, which where I'm coming from, it does not believe in something called the karma, right? So
mm,
you are born in that family, you have to go through everything that the family goes through.
mm,
No, that is absolutely not
mm,
correct in the Siddha tradition, where they say you may be born in any type of environment, any type of thing. What you achieve, what you decide as your fate,
mm,
is what you do. So there's a saying in Tirukural, which is one of the ancient literature from the Tamil tradition. It says that even if it is not possible by God, right? If it even if it is not possible by God, your effort will bring the fruit. So it is nothing to do with what's written on your head, and it is not something that can be never changed. So you can change anything at any point of time in your life. So people sometimes think that it is too late for me to change anything. I've gone too far into that. But making any small change at any point will yield the benefit, and that is what the power of epigenetics is. See that you can
mm,
simply change the way that cells behave, and new memories can be, new actions or new behaviors can be easily imprinted in our system.
Well, I think you're bringing a lot of hope to so many people who think that because somebody died of cancer in their family, they are going to die from cancer as well.
There are some genetic mutations
Mm,
that are there in the system that are hereditary that makes the person a little bit more vulnerable to certain types of cancer. For example,
mm,
having a gene mutation in breast cancer susceptibility gene could make that person more susceptible to cancer. But
mm,
the system is so redundant, like our system is not depending on one pathway. Just like you take the road to Charleston, right? So
mm,
Charleston can be approached by many different routes. Like
mm,
if the road, the ground road is transportation is blocked, I can go through the seaport or
mm,
to the airport. Or if one road is blocked, I can use another smaller road in the backyard, right? So
mm,
in the same way, if our system is built with so much redundancy, the nature has built beautiful redundant pathways. If one gene is blocked, it can use other genes that are normal to build the system stronger. So it again depends upon how well we preserve those additional circuits to keep our system healthier, right? So it is not just depending on just one thing. Definitely there are genetic diseases that are super kind of deterministic in that way. They are determined, yes, this is a genetic factor, it is going to affect cystic fibrosis, right? So the the diseases of the red blood cells. So you have those specific mutations that will affect the person, but there are many other modifiable risk factors that can diminish the power of genetic factors.
mm, mm. So that means that some people are more propense to develop it because they have the genes.
Yes,
That doesn't mean that they are going to develop this disease if they have a good track of their lifestyle,
exactly.
nutrition, mind health.
Mhm.
And you were talking also about that it's never too late to begin to work on your well-being and your health. People think because they're 60, they're 70, they're 80, it's too late to begin working on this. So are there going to be substantial changes if somebody in a very old state in a stage of their life, they're going to begin with pranayama, they're going to begin with meditation? Is this going to help them deactivate some genes that are going to make them propense to some diseases, or is it too late at this age?
So, if a person is, smoking for, several years, 30, 40 years, several packets a day, it is going to have a lot of effects on their lungs and their whole system, and the damage
Mm,
has been done. It's like, fixing a car after an accident. Just fixing the brake is not going to solve the problem, but it is going to it has its own effect on the body and the mind.
mm,
But with pranayama or with lifestyle modifications that you do at a later stage in the journey will help them in some way, like maybe to be in peace with the mind and to reduce some of the guilt or reduce the anxiety that is going to that's following because of you don't know what's going to come next, right? So those
mm,
type of anxiety or the the depression that has been accumulating over the years because of the behavior or the experience of the disease, you can manage some of those with these
mm,
additional tools. So
mm,
when I say it's not, no, it's never too late. It is, you're not going to reverse the pathology, but you can prevent some of the one that's going to be oncoming. So you can reduce some of the effects of those experiences. That's what I mean. There's a saying in Tamil that it says like you're going to say pray at the very end. So just to put that in a different language, so people try many things only at the very end. when it is like too much hurting too much, right? So it can have some consolation, but at the same time, to be able to kind of gain the full power or benefit of those
Mhm.
practices, it's always best to do that at the
Mhm.
very young age. Like that's
Mhm.
why they say, if it doesn't bend at 5, it won't bend at 50. So
Mhm.
it's like how you season or condition a small branch of tree, so you will be
Mhm.
able to use that for a later time. So you have to bend it at a very young age. So it's the
Mhm.
same way that you teach these things at a very young age, so people will be on it when they grow
Mhm.
up.
So it's never too late to take control of your gene activation. I can do it, for example, today by just changing my diet, by just adopting meditation into my lifestyle. This is going to have an immediate effect in the gene expression of the body, or it's going to take some time until you see some kind of results.
Yeah, so it's very interesting that some of the behavioral changes or lifestyle modifications can have a very immediate effect in your body. Say, for example, even if you do a breathing exercise for 5 minutes, right? You start a pranayama exercise for 5 minutes. I'm not. It could happen earlier than that, but what we measured in the lab is 5 minutes. So when you start doing an exercise for 5 minutes, you are going to stimulate some of the proteins that are important for our immune function or the functions of the nervous system, for example. And we know that the nerve growth factor is stimulated, and it is part of the salivary secretion. We also showed a lot of different factors, like the how it would be stimulating the brain-derived neurotrophic factor, so BDNF, so which is very much connected with the epigenetic modifications. So this is very key to the modifications, and also the genes like this also has an important connection with the hypoxia inducible factor, like the how the lower oxygen levels will help induce some of the pluripotency. So these are the changes that could have an impact on the epigenetics. So the clear change or the induction of the expression of these proteins clearly say that there is an underlying, genetic component. So we did not measure the gene expression or the expression of the protein at the gene level or genetic modifications like the epigenetic modifications, but it is in the pipeline that we are planning to do those experiments. But at the protein level, even in 5 minutes, within 5 minutes, you see some changes, which is very, very important to note for anyone who wants to make a change today. Like, for example, yesterday had a patient that she has a chronic stress, emotional issues, and then I noticed that she was breathing, she had a reverse breathing. So people with asthma, for example, when they inhale like, right? The
Mhm.
tummy goes inside when they
Mhm.
inhale. So it should be the opposite, right? So as
Mhm.
soon as we correct that, easy to correct with conscious breathing. As soon as you correct, she's able to breathe longer, breathe kind of deeply. So once that deep breathing is achieved, what you send the signal to the vagal nerves is a positive, parasympathetic activation. So the your vagal nerves start stimulating. So you will start producing, for example, more saliva or more tears. So these are kind of the factors that are healing factors. You will see immediate effects of these type of exercises, actions directly connected with the breathing regulation.
You make a research about how the breathing technique or how the pranayama is increasing what you call the nerve growth factor, that is a protein,
Mhm.
and also stimulating the production of immunoglobulins in the
Right.
saliva. Can you talk a
Mhm.
little bit of this? How is it possible to increase the production of these proteins by just breathing? I mean, now that we know the basic of epigenetics, how is breathing stimulating this process in the body?
So I touched a little bit upon the vagal nerve stimulation, right? So each tissue is innervated, or the cell types are innervated by the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nerves, right? So one or the other would be dominating at a given time, or which one is predominant, that will have the effect on the system. Say, for example, when we do the breathing exercises, for example, those that are kind of relaxing, and sometimes that breath retention, for example, in our experiment, what it does is that it stimulates that parasympathetic activation. So whenever there is a more activation of the parasympathetic nervous system, you have increased salivation, lacrimation, urination, digestion, defecation. All the water channels within the system are opened up, right? So the water channels are the key factors for pouring water and the internal secretions into the lumen. So you have either the airway or the gut or the genitourinary tract. They all are lined up by cells that have these parasympathetic sympathetic dominance, and then they can open up, and there are proteins, the aquaporins. The aquaporins are key proteins that will form or activate those pores, and then the secretions drain into the system. That's why you have more mucus, or the more of these secretions, like
Mm,
lacrimation, tears, and so on. So these, the internal machinery, those mucosal cells have a lot of these glands. So these glands produce the proteins. So the salivary glands also have proteins that are like the NGF is produced in saliva. So mainly, even the discovery of a nerve growth factor itself was from mouse saliva in the 1930s.
mm,
So
mm,
the tongue, for example, it has many different islands of glands, both
mm,
endocrine, exocrine glands. They can be stimulated through mechanisms like stretches, or the flow of air, like mechanical stretches can stimulate those glands as well.
mm,
So these are very responsive to changes in the airflow,
mm,
changes in the breath hold, changes in the way that the neuronal stimulation in those kind of the glands. So they already produce these type of proteins, and then they secrete into the system. So it is like the immunoglobulins, for example. They are also in the mucosal surface. The mucosal immune system is very, very key in the protection of our oral, nasal, mucosal surfaces,
mm,
and these are produced as part of that vagal nerve stimulation. So when we are stressed, when the system is dried, right, think about
mm,
how the oral dryness can increase the rate of infection,
mm,
like the dental caries and other oral infections are prominent in people with dry mouth. So
mm,
this increase in the flow of fluid will also bring in the molecules.
mm,
Immunoglobulins, for example, can easily bind to many different pathogens, or virus, bacteria, and so on. We also produce like proteins, like large proteins like salivary agglutinin. So
mm,
these are proteins that are again part of the mucosal secretion. They have parts of the molecule which can bind to
mm,
viruses, bacteria, influenza viruses, AIDS virus, for example. It's a very
mm,
interesting way to look at the biology as a result of changing your breathing.
that is super interesting. You were talking once also about the mind body connection, and how to that is it's not possible to control the mind, but there's a way to keep it on track by breathing. How Why breathing is so important for this?
Yeah, so for this, I follow the traditional text by Tirumular. It's called Tirumantra. It clearly says that the mind cannot travel on its own. So the
Mm,
mind needs a vehicle. So mind's speed, mind's actions are kind of dependent upon your breath. So
Mm,
when the breath is calm, the mind also is calm. So
mm,
the Trimuller says the breath is a horse. So your
mm,
breathing is a horse on which the mind is traveling. So if you
mm,
want to control the mind, reach out to the horse, not to the
mm,
traveler.
mm,
So if you ask the horse to slow down, the mind also will slow down. It's a very good, way to connect or understand the relationship between the mind and the breath. So we cannot control mind with our mind, right? So, but we can approach the breathing. So when we are able to control the breathing voluntarily, we see how it can lead to the regulation of the mind itself. There are several breathing exercises that I teach that can have an immediate effect of like how you can stop the flow of thoughts, flow of
mhm,
words. At the
mm,
end of breathing exercise, you will see, where are my words, where are my
mhm,
thoughts, right? It's like completely calm down. You will be noticing that going into meditation is much much easier only after you regulate your breathing, right? After a breathing small stretch of breathing exercise, you will find meditation is very very easy. Without that, it's very hard because you're still, your physical body is trying to fight with the breathing rhythm, like because it's going chaotic, you're not conditioning it. And with that rhythmic, with that calmed down breathing, there is no hindrance for you to approach the mind. That's
mm,
why the layers, the 5 layers of our existence is important, like the physical body, the prana, the breath body, and then the mind layer. So
mm.
only after you kind of condition the physical layer and the breath layer, then you can approach the mind layer. And then after that, you will easily transcend into that wisdom layer or the bliss layer. So you will be
Mm.
able to go deeper and deeper with the help of breathing.
Let me see if I can understand it very well. It's like if you control your breath, you control your mind. If you can control your mind, you're gonna control your emotions. If you have control of your emotions, your brain is going to secrete hormones and chemicals that they're going to go into your bloodstream and they're going to feed your cells. And depending of your emotions, these are going to be good hormones or bad hormones. It's pretty much like this how we are taking control and changing our biology with our mind or with the breathing instead of saying like we are victims of our genes.
Exactly, exactly. You said it right. So it is all about how we, keep our mind and thoughts, and even without thoughts, right? So without thoughts in the sense not thoughtless, it's the a thought, the cessation of our thoughts, like the how we will be able to kind of go to a stage where there is no amplification of our fears, amplification of our ideas, desires, so they all can be kind of regulated through the regulation of breathing, and then having a mindset that's kind of positive, that kind of the happy hormones, like you produce more of these endorphins, more dopamines that you also can create within your body and keep the system kind of happier on its own. So Muller says that you do not need anything from outside if you know how to handle your air, your breath. So if you handle it easily, the most voluntary thing that you can do is that actively doing some of the breathing exercise. Then comes the mindset. The mindset automatically follows, and then all the biological actions within your body will follow. So it will follow a pattern. That's how the kind of it will help embed the lifestyle, or kind of formulate a new habit. So form a new habit through the breathing, through the mindset, keeping an intention.
Mhm.
You will be able to change the biology.
Mm. So pretty much we have a good control and we start producing all these good chemicals in the body, oxytocin and so on. We're going to have a very healthy body. What happens if we are in a constant stress all the time and releasing
Yeah.
all these other chemicals in our bloodstream?
So the constant stress, whether it is in the physical body or an mental stress, can lead to production of many chemicals. For example, chemicals that would increase inflammation. So those we call as cytokines. So some of the blood cells, like the white blood cells, different subtypes of white blood cells, will stimulate those cytokines or interleukins that will further amplify the stress response at the cellular level. So they will create or they will secrete these molecules that will further damage the local tissues or bring more damage to the site. For example, to the heart or to the respiratory mechanism, right? So you have many different inflammatory pathways that can be stimulated with stress. So what we showed in our one of our papers is that how these inflammatory cytokines can be reduced with breathing exercises. So this, as I mentioned before, there are like large molecular weight mucins that we secrete. Those mucins can kind of sponge away, take away that small molecular weight cytokines, like the
Mm,
inflammatory molecules. So you have a large sponge that goes and grabs all the bad molecules and put them
mm,
away in the system. So that's how the breathing exercises would help with reducing
mm,
the inflammatory molecules, right?
mm,
So it is very important to notice that the having a mental stress or having a physical stress can be detrimental.
mm,
And on top of it, if you're able to do these exercises, you can, number one, reduce that future stress, or reduce the existing stress and ill effects of the stress. So it's kind of a helping in both ways. So
mm.
when you're able to address that emotional stress, you that breathing exercises will help you to kind of prevent the amplification of that stress.
How capable we are to heal our bodies just by using breathing?
Yeah. So it alone is not helpful, but it can be helpful to a kind of with a combination of several things. That's why we always talk about integrative health, right? So the
Mm,
integrative health is that having a good nutrition, good company, having a good social life, doing exercises, and then doing pranayama, right? Doing many different things. Like it is like a how different tastes or flavors enrich the food. In the
mm,
same way, we are enriched by so many different things in life. So
mm,
breathing exercises alone may not be sufficient, but for some people, like saints who are in the caves of Himalayas, they can just breathe and be happy. And
mm,
but we are living in this world, and we do need all other inputs. So
mm,
definitely it's a key component, but it cannot be just the sole component for our
mm.
healing.
Let's talk a little bit about longevity. I mean, we cannot reverse aging, but we can stop aging to develop on a fast pace.
Yeah.
So, what are those practices that you've been studying over the years that are helping in to reduce the cellular oxidation or the acceleration of the longevity in the human
Yeah,
body?
so the acceleration, right? So the faster we crank the wheels, the faster we leave, right? The slower, the better. So that's why the slowing down is a key practice. Slowing down on the breathing, slowing down on the lifestyle, and then slowing down mainly on the eating. So how good are we able to do the fasting, right? So the here the fast is as in the food, right? So we slow down by a lot of fasting. There are many different protocols for intermittent fasting or fasting on certain days during the week. For example, I try to fast on Thursdays, or time to time I would skip a meal or two. So depending upon the mood and the energy level, work atmosphere that I go through, so I try to do that. And then exercise, right? So fasting, exercise, and then during the fasting also you will be able to do a lot of breathing exercises that will help you maintain that good energy level, and also like very mild practices of safe stretch exercises like yoga, very mild yoga, not the super fast one or the high strenuous one, and keeping a long time for walks, and healthy diet. These are all important factors for slowing down on the aging process. So
mm,
we have telomeres, which are at the
mm,
in the end pieces of our DNA or genes. So we have that going down or cut down at the end of every cell division.
mm,
So keeping that cell cycle slower is
mm,
possible by reducing the way that it is cranking up. So for example, the higher metabolism, right? So
mm,
higher food intake, they all can crank the wheel up. So fasting would help us to slow down that a little bit, and this will also kind of improve longevity. And people have seen that in the anecdotally in
mm,
the traditional practices, that you have a good social life,
mm,
kind of areas like the green spots, right? So you have places where you have better longevity, mainly because of the environment, of the friendship, or
mm,
good wine, or good yoga, pranayama,
mm.
all can be adding up to that longevity.
How is the practice of the asanas really helping on a cellular level to restore or repair the body or to prolong the longevity of the cell?
So
Can you?
asanas are really beneficial in terms of keeping the physical body, active, flexible. The spine, like how flexible your spine is, that relates to your longevity. That is also
Mm,
another idea in the Siddha system. So keeping the body flexible helps the movement of internal circulation. So better circulation means you have better nutrition, better toxin removal from the body. So it's asanas would help in that way a lot, and physically keeping the body stronger. So it is
mm,
helpful in many ways. But the types of asanas are repetitive injuries are also noticed in the literature. So
mm,
having a certain type of practice, or having too much injury or pressure in one specific area, might be kind of a problem in later life. So you have to be, that's why the even if you take the Atanga yoga or the eight limb practice, it has a place for every single style, right? So you
mm,
have way of life, do's and don'ts, and physical postures, how you will be doing pranayama, and then withdrawing from the senses and going into meditation. Everything is contained within that Atanga yoga practice.
mm,
So yoga, in the sense, like, you have to consider all the different types. Just like I mentioned, the integrative practice, yoga is
mm,
also integrative. That's why we also have integral yoga tradition from Swami Sachidananda. So
mm,
you have it has all the components, like service to humanity, friendship, everything is coming into that practice. So if you just take only one component, asanas alone, that's not considered as yoga,
mm,
and it is not going to fulfill the complete happiness or the fulfillment in
mm,
the holistic life,
mm,
if I may say that. But it's definitely a key practice that will help you to understand what yoga is, what the
mm,
connection of the mind and body, and it will help you to learn other things that kind of deeper. I have seen so many people coming to me after years of asana practice, and then said, like, okay, this is the one that I need as the next step. right?
Mm,
So this kind of seen as one level, just like your physical layer. Just
mm,
one level deeper is the breath layer, the
mm,
pranamaya code. So
mm,
you it will help you to achieve that, conditioning of the physical body, and then you will identify that something else is there a little deeper. So
mm.
it'll help you to bring you into that.
For somebody who wants to improve his life right now and start working his longevity and his improve his overall health, what could be the best practices to start adopting, and what things should we avoid?
Yeah. So go to bed early, early to bed, early to rise, right?
Mm,
And having a good diet, right? Healthy diet, less preserved food, and
mm,
then less sugar. Of course, a balanced diet is always great, and a green diet, if possible. I wouldn't say that pure vegetarianism is going to be the best for that person. They can do, according to their needs, the body
mm,
needs. They can have everything in moderation, and basically moderation in life, like a good walk quite a bit every day, having a good physical movement, either the asanas or the walking or simple jogging. Do those kinds of things, and then some kind of strenuous exercise is also great. And sleep well, eat well. That's all I have to
mm,
say. So it's like have a good positive mindset. They are above all the compassion, right? So
mm,
have to have compassion for the self, and that will
mm,
have that will reflect on the on others as well. So that's kind of the key driver for
mm.
everything.
What is a good pranayama exercise that we can start practicing
Yeah,
today?
there are so many exercises, as you know, probably from my book. I have compiled 37 different breathing exercises, and many different types of pranayama, depending upon the need of a person. So, if I want to activate myself, I can do one set of pranayama. If
Mm,
I want to calm down myself, I can do another set of pranayama. So, if I'm on the go, like I'm driving, I can do a different type of pranayama. When I'm sitting down or lying down, a different type of
mm,
pranayama. So it really depends what we want to achieve,
mm,
what is the next level that I want to do. So the simple pranayama would be like watching the breathing at the tip of the nostrils, watching the flow of the breath
mm,
inside, like engaging the chest, the lower ribs, and the abdomen,
mm,
and breathing in and out through the nostrils. Always maintain a good practice of nostril breathing, not the oral breathing. Nostril breathing is key to kind of connect with the nervous system, not
mm,
the oral breathing. So it's very important to maintain that nasal breathing and deeper breathing, making sure that the tummy is bulged out when you breathe in, and then when you exhale it should shrink, right? So
mm,
people make sure that it is not reversed because of the
mm,
stress or other conditions. And nice long deeper breathing, humming, is a great way to
mm,
maintain deeper breathing throughout the day. In fact, we have an app called Humma,
mm,
Humma, Humma, on both Apple Store and then Androids.
mm,
People can download and then set up time to hum. So the
mm,
humming is a very easy way, and chanting, singing, these are all
mm,
great ways to engage the mind, also engage the breath. So
mm,
depending upon the on the personal need, one can devise many different or breathing exercises or the patterns. And
mm,
it's like learning different breathing exercises will help us to have a toolbox. So wherever, at whatever circumstance you're going through, you can use that and quickly modify the way that your
mm,
mind and then the body can accommodate those needs.
mm,
Like before you going to work out, you want to do some active breathing exercise, and after the workout you probably want to do some slowing down exercises to cool
mm.
down. These are all kind of easier way to incorporate in your busy daily life.
I wanted to ask you, now that you're talking about humming, What is the connection about humming and the production of nitric oxide? And why is important?
So nitric oxide is it's an important neurotransmitter, and it is also a dilator, right? So your bronchovascular dilation is possible through the production of nitric oxide. So you have the sinuses, right? So the sinuses have a little opening, the ostia. So they can be kind of opened. The sinuses produce the nitric oxide, the mucosal membrane within the sinuses or the airway. They produce a lot of nitric oxide. And during that vibration that you create in the humming, the ostia can be a little bit more opened up. Right, so that will help us to have more nitric oxide released into the system, going to the central nervous system and also to the airway. Helps us to kind of improve our breathing, improve our neurotransmission. So nitric oxide is a key factor in many of these pathways. So it's humming helps in those
Mm,
conditions. And also when you hum, your exhalation is longer. You try to hum a little bit longer, so you also have that diaphragmatic extension.
mm,
You're able to contract the diaphragm much better, and the number of times that you would hum in a given minute is not going to be 15 times a minute like in
mm.
regular breathing. You'll hum maybe 3 or 4 times a minute, which is good way of reducing the number of breaths as well.
Where can the people find your studies? Where can the people find your books and more studies that you're creating right now?
Yes, so we have some of the one key study is just completed, where we use the breathing exercise app for teaching breast cancer survivors. So we just finished the enrollment, and the study will be completed very soon. We'll be excited to publish and share those data with people, and the previously published articles, my books. Chanting album, and information about the app all can be seen in pranascience.com. Prana, Prana, science, SCIENCE.com, one word. You'll find me on Google. Just Google my name, Sundar Breathing. Also, can be a keyword, and you will find a lot of videos where I show the different breathing exercises. And I also have many different classes and training courses coming up. Stay tuned on my website, and also you can connect with our team, info@pranascience.com.
Dr. Balasubramanian, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for this information. I really, really appreciate it.
It's fantastic to talk with you, Philip, and
Mm,
I look forward to continuing our conversation
yeah,
and collaboration.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I wish you a
Have a
wonderful
good
day.
day.
Thank you.
Bye bye. You too.